Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, depending on what part of the world you're in. Welcome to the Batman Show, episode 2. Today, Sir Ian and Mr. Eric Woods. How are y'all?
Good. How are you?
Fantastic.
Okay. It's raining here in Alabama, but that's okay. It's going to rain all week, I hear.
Yeah, we got gloomy skies, but it's warmer than it's been in the past 2 weeks, so I'll take it.
What's warmer for Canada this time of year?
In and around 10, 15 degrees Celsius. So we're at 13 right now. And we're supposed to hit like 18 somewhere in the middle of the week. So yeah, it's gonna be nice.
Well, we still use Fahrenheit here in America.
Sorry?
So we still use Fahrenheit here in
Oh
America.
yeah. So how do I convert? Let's see if I can convert that.
I usually just go.
Yeah, it's supposed to get 21 on Wednesday, actually. Holy smokes.
If you multiply by 12 and add the color yellow.
Like 21, I think, is in the upper 70s or 80s for you guys. I think. But we're supposed to hit a high of 14, so
13 is 55.4.
Okay. Yeah. That's pleasant. We were at below zero a couple days ago, which is I think 32 degrees for you guys. So that's cold.
Well, if we're discussing temperature, it's 9 degrees in Edinburgh at the moment. 9 degrees Celsius.
There we go.
So that's about 140 Fahrenheit, maybe.
48.2. Wow.
We had some weather yesterday as well.
That they need to produce that box set that's been floating around for Star Wars, right?
No, that was funny. I've seen that so many times, but every time it pops up, you're like, oh! And then you're like, all right, that's the April Fool's joke.
Yeah,
but that would be nice. I don't know if I don't know how they're going to do it, but I don't know. I really don't know if they are going to do it, how they're going to do it. Whether it does come in a box, whether they start releasing them individually, I don't know. They're so special. Star Wars scores are so special that, I mean, like you said, it's instant money. You're just printing money. So, but I don't know what kind of elements they have. I don't know what they're dealing with. Yeah.
Will Disney do it itself, or will they pass it out to La La Land?
It would probably be. Mike Matessino would most likely work on it, and because he's this close with John Williams, then it's a matter of. I mean, Disney's got the best partnership with Entrada, but I don't know how that would go about. I don't. It can't be. I don't think it could be a specialty label release. I think it's a Walt Disney Records release, but then what's the contract like with Sony Classical, who had the rights? I don't know how, even though Disney acquires Lucasfilm, what comes with that as way of music, and of course music licensing doesn't necessarily, well, it sort of does have to deal with the film company, but then there's a whole bunch of other stuff on the go, and then you got to get John Williams's approval, and so I can understand it being a huge process, and especially when you got 9 film scores that you're talking about, and then finding all of those elements with for what we do know, and anybody who's listening to this can correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember Sean Murphy, the recording engineer of the the prequel scores and the sequel scores, mentioning that they found, or Skywalker Sound found, like pristine elements of Star Wars and or the rest of those original trilogy scores as well, and that's what they used to create those new LP masters, I assume. And so, if that's the case, then that's great. Then I don't think we have to worry about what elements we're going to get, because when they were releasing the 1993 box set, I think even the RCA Victor box set, they were mining from 4 or 5 different types of tape or formats, and I mean, for whatever they put together, it's miraculous that it sounded as good as it did. So now you're just thinking of putting out 9 perfect albums that are going to keep everyone happy. And then, like, I mean, do you release the original albums as well along with that? So are you re-editing the Grammy Award winning Star Wars album? Are you redoing the actual album cut of Empire and releasing those alongside of the complete score? So who knows? But I think that I don't mind if they take the time to do it right, but we're some people are running out of time. You know what I mean? It's like they've been waiting forever. Let's get these things out. But when is the right time? You would think that at the end of episode 9 would have been the right time. But when's the right time to release these things? With John Williams' 90th would have been a great time to release it. Maybe they still are. I don't know. But it would be fantastic if they did that. And then same thing with Indiana Jones. But
Please.
Yeah. And that's where, I'm sure there's a lot of complicated things that go into it, especially 2 enormous franchises like that. But I mean, you look and see what Paramount has done with Star Trek, and it's been magnificent, absolutely magnificent. And you're just hoping that Star Wars can follow suit. And same thing with Indiana Jones. Let's do it right. Let's get it right this time.
It might be tricky with Indiana Jones though, because I mean, how much of that still belongs to Paramount? How much is Disney? You know,
right. Like, I mean, you don't see Indiana Jones on Disney Plus at all. So who owns the rights to that? And it's most likely Paramount. So I don't know. I really don't know, and it'd be great to know. And I just hope within the next 5 years, maybe even less, that we can get these things out. It would make so many people happy. It truly would. But I don't know I don't know what's keeping them back from doing it. And maybe they're working on it now. Maybe they've been working on it forever. Who knows?
Would you want the recording sessions if you could get them?
I think the interest of the recording sessions would be to hear like the alternate performances, which is what makes the 5 main title playbacks at the end of disc 1 of the RCA Victor release so incredible. And it's also great to hear the talk back, the preamble beforehand, and maybe even John Williams conducting, and then listening to him give instructions. But it's just something that for the interest of people who are like us, who might find that to be interesting maybe once, and that's all I'd play it. I'd be like, oh, that's kind of neat. And all right, well, I want to go back to the album. I don't want to hear, let's say, the I don't know, TIE Fighters Attack and the 5 different takes they took of it. I mean, the Star Wars main title itself is 3 separate takes mixed together. So each performance is completely different, but they took take 1, 3, and 5 or something like that. And that's what they used for the actual main title. So what you hear isn't one completed performance. So I think it'd be neat. Alternate versions are great. Like if it's really, really different, I think those are cool, but I don't know if I need to hear every single moment of every single day of that recording session.
Yeah, I think sometimes when you get that kind of stuff, to the untrained eye, I mean, there are sometimes when I listen to alternate takes on a special edition soundtrack, and I'm thinking, I personally can't hear the difference between that and the other one. You know, to the initiated, that people might say, oh yeah, there's a flute playing slightly differently, and but to me, I'm just like, sounds the same.
Well, there's an alternate take of the carriage chase from Cutthroat Island, and the only change is the last 5 seconds. One ends in a more triumphant ending, the other one is more of the filmic ending as it bleeds into the next scene, and that's it. That's the only thing that changed about that track. So, I mean, I don't know.
I mean,
Is that worth it?
Well, yeah. I mean, that's a good 7-minute long track as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it's beast.
So you listen to that whole thing, and then you get to the end, and you think, all right,
that's it. That's all.
Could have just given me that 5 seconds at the end. You know.
That's right.
I'm going to address the question real fast. I don't know. We might discuss Batman 2022. We don't really have any plans. It's just mostly just a chit chat show, and the Batman show is kind of like a joke. We thought up last week.
That's the name of the show. I think it should just be called the Batman Show, and we never talk about Batman.
Yeah. Did y'all like the picture I got done for the show?
Yes, that's very good. I like how I didn't get a nickname. I love that.
I don't know what to call you besides Eric Wood. I mean, Ian had Bat Ian on last week, so I just ran with that. But I guess when I think of you, I think of Arnold from Predator, and I think of Captain Kirk, and I think of you. So that's what you got.
Why?
I don't understand.
I don't know.
I don't know. I could get to the chopper. I mean,
y'all are both kind of built, and Captain Kirk is just like sophisticated dude, but you know.
I like how you think that this is built. This is built on junk food. Arnold's built on absolute muscle.
Steroid.
Yeah, well,
yeah,
go ahead.
So sorry, I know, Tim. Before we get too far away from, you were talking about first takes of the main title of Star Wars. I love it on the Star Trek, the motion picture soundtrack, where they give the initial first performance of the main title, and they flub it the first time they play it, and then there's a quick bit, back and forth with Jerry Goldsmith saying, no, it's bum bum, and then do it again, and it works. I love that.
Yeah, I think a little sprinkle of that with the Star Wars albums, like if there's something significant where you can actually hear them working something out, I think that would be fantastic. Much like hearing there's a bonus cut on Wyatt Earp, and James Newton Howard's talking about how this is like one of the greatest experiences he ever had. It's a super important score, and he goes on and talks for 5 to 10 minutes. And then there's another, or is that no? And then on Waterworld, you have Kevin Costner who comes in, and you can hear him talk about the score and the process, and I like that sort of stuff. But it doesn't have to be like hours and hours and hours of that. But I mean, I think that would be fascinating if maybe you release that on its own. I mean, I don't know how much of that being said wants to get out in the public, but I do find that fascinating. Much like, I mean, that Star Wars documentary that makes the rounds all the time, and we see it like almost every 6 months on all the Facebook forums and Twitter, where John Williams where they're doing the whole Empire Strikes Back behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And seeing, Williams composing and working and then eventually conducting. I think that is absolutely fascinating. And I'm so glad we have that. I mean, that's interesting where, I mean, Steven Spielberg apparently has filmed all of the recording sessions that he has had with John Williams. I would love to see that as a documentary. Just that. That would be incredible if Spielberg ever released that stuff.
I mean, you always see him in the behind the scenes footage on all his films when he gets to the scoring part of the documentary. There's always Spielberg in the background, either with his phone or with a small camcorder.
Right.
So his private collection must be awesome.
But it's got to be mined and put together. We have to see that. I think that would be incredible. Absolutely incredible.
Absolutely.
Is there a way to like make that happen? Surely somehow, because things get made because people start working towards it, right?
Well, if we just sit here for the next 2 hours just screaming Steven Spielberg, make it happen.
Yeah.
Somebody on YouTube's gonna pick up on these weirdos just screaming Spielberg, make it happen, and it might filter its way down through to him. So.
Well, Steven Spielberg has an agent, right? Or is he agentless at this point in time?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know what his.
Don't know.
Who knows? Who knows? But it would be. The thing is, if it was like a 2-hour documentary, it still wouldn't do all of that justice. It would almost have to be like a Netflix miniseries.
Ken Burns type
Ken
thing.
Burns, absolutely.
Yeah.
Now that is somebody we need to contact to get in touch with Spielberg to release those. And then if you do Ken Burns, you can get away with it. You can definitely get away with 16 hours of watching Williams behind the scenes footage.
Because Steven Spielberg loves John Williams. I mean, he loves John Williams. I mean, I think he would probably be on board with it.
That would be amazing. That would be amazing. Yeah. And I mean, I think, going back to a longer Netflix series, I saw a post from the Score documentary guys. And apparently at some point they pitched Netflix to do a series on film composing to expand their documentary. And it looks like nothing has happened since then. They were complaining about all the things that were have been greenlit through Facebook, through Netflix, and all this other crap, but they can't get their documentary expanded on Netflix. So yeah, it was interesting. Give me a sec. I'm gonna have to just step away for just a second. Yep. I'll be right back.
We can talk about Eric now he's gone. Or he's probably just sitting there listening to us. So
yeah, he's probably trying to find the most expensive thing on eBay to rope me into buying.
Well, as you said earlier on, it's payday for you. So
it was. Yes, it was. That means tomorrow is broke day. I'll wake up tomorrow morning and I'll grab my phone and I'll pay everything that's due for the next 30 days. Just and the bills go and the bank account goes and it's like, well, that lasted long.
Have you ordered anything yet since you've been paid?
I have not, but I think I'm going to order The Bride of Frankenstein from Waxworks.
All right.
Is that the original soundtrack?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
It gets released next month, so in theory. Franz Waxman did it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing.
I think I've got it on CD. Didn't they reissue it a couple years ago?
So La La Land released it. Yeah. There was a re-recording, which is quite good. And I know it's been recorded many times before. Gerhardt did a wonderful interpretation of it as well. But yeah, it was only a couple of years ago that they released the original tracks, which sound surprisingly good for the age. And the whole presentation of the CD was just brilliant. So I don't know what the Waxworks release is like, but I'm sure it's equally as good. So yeah, you can't go wrong. It's a classic score. It's one of the most influential scores ever written. So yeah, it's fantastic.
Have y'all seen that new Phantom of the Opera by Craig Saffron? Am I saying his name correct?
I haven't seen it, but I do have it. Yeah. And there's going to be an interview with Jason Drury on our site soon about that and Saffron's career.
I was thinking about ordering that. I listened to it on the YouTube and I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, we're going to be doing also a talk on Last Starfighter at some point. I just have to, get in touch with, Randy's been trying to get in touch with me to do it. I just need to find the time. So, but yeah, but Saffron is, I wish he had more of a prolific career than what he did. Cause yeah, man, he's written some incredible scores. So
is it by choice or just happenstance?
I don't know. He had a pretty good relationship with Nick Castle. But I just guess he never really caught on. So yeah, I don't know what the deal is with him, but he wrote some great scores, but it just seemed like the 90s. I mean, one of the last big films that he did. I mean, did you ever see Major Payne, 1995, or Mr. Wrong? That was really bad. But then it was like TV movies. So he just never really caught on. But I mean, earlier on in his career, he had he wrote some additional music for Thief. Then he did Remo Williams.
I love
The Last
Remo Williams.
Starfighter. There's a great score. He did Nightmare on Elm Street 4. But there's what's it called? Son of the Morning Star, released on Intrada, and I'm not sure whether they released an expanded edition of that one, but it probably would be his finest dramatic score. It's really, really good. So if you can find that one, get it.
Did he do Wolfen and it was rejected, or was that okay?
Yes. Yeah. So I mean, that could have quickly ended his career, but yeah,
I thought he did a pretty good job for Wolfen.
Yeah, it was fine. I don't know. I mean, I can't recall the story as to why Horner was eventually brought in, but yeah. But I like Safin's music a lot. I mean, Last Starfighter is a classic, an absolute classic. So, but he's a nice guy, and I haven't heard the interview yet that Jason did, but I'm looking forward to getting it up on the podcast at some point.
He posted some stuff on his YouTube channel whenever it was, but it was him conducting Last Starfighter and Remo Williams. I forget where it was. It might have been in Spain or wherever it was. But I put a comment saying this was fantastic. It's great to see you conducting it. And he actually replied to me on the YouTube channel. I thought, oh, fantastic!
Yeah,
that's made my day.
Yeah, it's great to see. It's great to see that stuff. I forgot what the name of the Spanish festival is, but they do these. It's an outdoor concert, isn't it? Isn't that the one that had the very emotional, like, last concert for Basil Polidorus? I mean, he came out. He was super sick, but he conducted this massive version of Conan the Barbarian.
Yeah,
and it was just magical. The photographs were fantastic, but he dressed all in black. He had a black headband on, and just blew everybody away.
Yeah. I only heard about that because I read Robert Townsend's notes in the Starship Troopers deluxe edition, where he mentions, that was one of the last things that he did. So yeah, that was a.
You can find the video on YouTube pretty easy.
Yeah, I think so.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's quite emotional. It is. Yeah.
What did he die from? Was it colon cancer?
I think so. Yeah, I think that's what it was. And it's just so. It's too bad that. I mean, his career was kind of, winding down for many years. Like, he wasn't being utilized as much as he used to be. And then, like, one of his last scores was either a Japanese or a Chinese production. It's really good, but he got smaller. Like, I mean, there's a great little score that he wrote for this film that I don't think anybody saw. It was called Kimberly, and it's just a beautiful little score, heartfelt score. And but yeah, I wish he had done more. I wish more directors appreciated him, especially in the last part of his life, and he had so much more to offer. Yeah, it's pretty sad.
Did Kimberly get a soundtrack release?
Yeah, through Varese.
Okay.
It's it's like the cheapest soundtrack you'll ever see. It's like Comic Sans type, and it's got like just this film still of it's like Kimberly on. Wow, I forgot what it looks like.
$36, $25. Those are I think the only two options on eBay.
Are you going to buy it, Daniel?
Wait. Here's one for $14.49.
Yeah, it's a 25-minute score, but yeah, it has a still of the
It's
actress.
25 minutes.
The font is just the worst.
13 tracks.
But it's a lovely score.
Okay, you made me do it.
All right. I win.
Thank you for tuning in to the Batman Show. We'll be back.
Well, let's see what else I can get you to buy.
Yeah, I've had Fear Street 3 LP set in my cart for like a week or 2 weeks.
Fear Street's great. Yeah.
Did you like one episode more than the others, or?
I think the second score is the best one, because it really, I mean, the influences are obvious, but it has a more kind of gothic Jerry Goldsmith tone to it, mixed with kind of that Beltrami 90s horror sound. It's just really, really, really good. I didn't, I watched the first movie and I didn't really like it, and we never got into the other two. But maybe I should, because I did spend time with that first one. I'm like, okay, well, so let's see how this ends. But the music for the second film really, really impressed. It felt like those early 80s, late 70s horror scores. Just amazing stuff. So
I enjoyed the third episode, the 1666, was it?
that's one, yeah, that went way back. I think the second one was like 78 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, those are great scores.
Is it an actual series or is it a series of films?
3 films, all released at the exact same time. Well, sort of. I think they were scattered a little bit, like weekly or bi-weekly on Netflix. But Beltrami and a team of about 4 or 5 other composers worked together on the scores, and they're incredible achievements. Lots of music and lots of horror music. So I don't know how long they had to work on them, but it was like Brandon Roberts, Marcus Trump. I forgot the woman who wrote for the third score. Oh, geez, and that's terrible of me. And Buck Sanders wrote a few cues here and there, but quite impressive. Quite impressive.
I watched. Sorry, go on, Daniel. Sorry.
Oh no! Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Ian.
No, I was going to say, talking to Marco Beltrami, I watched Ford versus Ferrari for the first time a couple of nights ago.
Did you like it?
I thought it was a wonderful film. Wonderful. I'm not really a car racing guy, and I didn't really know the history there, but I thought it was fantastic. And Beltrami's score, even though it's not necessarily my cup of tea, I thought it fit the film perfectly. It was just a brilliant film. So
Boomer,
go on, Daniel. What were you going to say?
Oh, well, Boomer talks a lot about Ford versus Ferrari. I think that was his favorite film that year. Was Ford versus, came out, was it 2019?
19, yeah.
Seems so long ago, but like yesterday at the same time.
The last 2 years seem like forever.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen that movie yet, and I think I need to. I see it pop up occasionally, and I'm like, oh, I should give this a go, but just something keeps me away from it. I'm not sure why, but I'm sure once I get into it, I'll enjoy it.
Did you see Rush?
I haven't seen Rush either.
Ian, have you seen Rush?
I've seen Rush. I enjoyed Rush, but I actually preferred Ford versus Ferrari.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I may have to break down and watch it then.
It's a gorgeous looking film as well. It just looks like a proper kind of 60s Panavision film. It's just that beautiful photography. It's just stunning.
Is this a Ford versus Ferrari or Rush?
This is Ford versus Ferrari.
I've seen clips and it does look great.
Yeah.
I saw the one clip where he takes some guy around the track for a ride, and it looked pretty good. Yeah. Maybe I'll watch it tonight.
Welcome, Dee Pensack, and welcome, Anders Falk. How are y'all today? Any questions for either of us? Shoot them out in the chat.
Yeah.
Anders, I recognize that name. He's I
recognize the name too. Yep. So what have you guys been listening to lately?
I've been listening to The Mummy Returns because
nice.
again, I caught up with it again at the weekend, and controversially, it's now topped my Mummy poll for the best score for the Mummy films. I mean, I love the Jerry Goldsmith score, but I think Silvestri is just awesome.
You can't go wrong with either selection. I think they're both
No.
equally brilliant, but they're both very, very different. And I'm glad we have both. I really am, because I don't think at that time I thought I would get another score like that from Silvestri. There's nothing that was telling me that it would never happen again. But I just think that when I heard it, I was like, oh, okay. I mean, just the thematic depth in that score, and just the sheer size of it, and just how coherent it is too, with the sheer amount of music that there is. It is a lovely score from start to finish, just meaning that it just tells that story perfectly, and there's nothing there that just feels out of place. And it's just great music too. I mean, that when I first heard my first bus ride, I could not believe he sustained that much energy over that amount of time, when I should have known that he can do that because we had the clock tower sequence from Back to the Future. But just it was unbelievable. And then to see it in context, it's like, wow, it is so good. And what I love about that score, and there's a specific moment, is when that fight ends and we see that wide shot of the bus going over the bridge, and Silvestri's music is still just going absolutely bonkers, and he gets to, for about 15 or 20 seconds, give just one more rousing play of that theme, crashing cymbals and everything. And I don't know whether even today you would see that, where, you know, everything just kind of steps back just right at the end of an action sequence, and you just really kind of like have that one last rah moment. It's magnificent.
Yeah, and he's not afraid of using that theme over and over, and it never gets boring.
Right.
It's not like he's saying, "Well, just throw in the theme because you're doing something." It's littered throughout the film, and you just want more of it. It's just fantastic.
Agreed. I agree completely. And I remember being in the theater and hearing that end credit cue, and could not believe it wasn't on the soundtrack, because
I know
it was on my latest show when I talked about it, or 2 shows ago, but when I did my soundtrack tag, it is the most played track I have in my collection. And you're right, I just cannot get enough of it. It's really an addicting score. Once you start going, you just like keep injecting this into my bloodstream, because it's so fantastic. It really is. And it's another example of where I don't mind the fact that there isn't the thematic continuity, although it would be great to hear what Goldsmith would have done with his material in that sequel. But yeah, they both wrote great themes that play to their own strengths. And I think that's what's so fantastic about both of them.
Talking about the themes for the Mummy films, Jerry's theme, when you hear it on the initial soundtrack that came out, is it in Sand Volcano, where it segues into the end credits? His end credits, or the way he released it on the soundtrack album, it immediately goes into, you know, a grand rendition of the theme, whereas in the film it goes into the kind of the softer kind of love material for the film. Which is a lovely piece of music, but I think going out of the film, as soon as the credits hit and they ride off into the sunset, to have that dun 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 dun, dun would have been yay, let's go march out the cinema.
Yeah.
So I always wish that had been the way that it had been for the film, rather than just on the soundtrack.
Yeah, because I think that then when it leads into then the love theme, and that's how that piece ends. And oh man, what a solo trumpet performance of that theme.
Absolutely.
I mean, how many love themes are you hearing just on a solo trumpet? It's an odd orchestration, but it works so brilliant, because you're expecting everything to be on, let's say, the horns or the strings, or even on the woods, but to give it to a solo trumpet just it's elegant, lovely stuff. And that I think is one of his greatest themes. Just one of the greatest love themes, I think, too. It's unreal how good it is.
But Jerry was always great at solo trumpet stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look at Chinatown. Look at Alien.
Right.
Just
yeah. What I love about even his themes, he would give those themes off to a solo instrument before getting into a grand rendition of it. And so he wrote his orchestrations are always so clean and clear and precise. And he knew how to let those solo instruments breathe. But then he would have that backing underneath it that just added warmth to those pieces. And he was so good at it. Again, the clarity of his orchestration is what I really appreciate about Jerry Goldsmith. Even though if he had 4 or 5 things different going on, you can clearly hear those elements without it becoming mud, just an absolute mess. The way you can, like, for instance, I mean, I think a lot of people I've heard some people complain about the way John Powell writes. I call it controlled chaos. But when you hear something like his, big finale music with the Dark Phoenix in X-Men 3, it can get quite chaotic. I personally love it. Again, I can discern what's going on, but there's just a lot of stuff happening. With Goldsmith, it's always very clear, even if it's loud and he's got a 90-piece orchestra and chorus and drums and everything going on. It's just so precise and so clear. Yeah, very different style of composing, and I loved Goldsmith for that. He would simplify things without being simplistic. Just beautiful writing.
There was another solo trumpet. It's a very short piece, but at the end of Basic Instinct, when Nick Curran is walking up to his apartment block,
right,
and you get that really strong solo trumpet of his theme.
Yep. And that's the noir element.
Yeah.
Of that score, and I love it. I love it so much. Again, I don't know how many composers would have picked up on that. I really don't know how many, and that's just a special score on its own.
Yeah.
But I don't know how many people would pick up on that noir element and do that, and make it work without it seeming cheesy or dated.
Yeah, or a parody of what the film's supposed to be.
Exactly. Yeah. And it works brilliantly. And you're right. Now, but you mention it, it's like it's in my head. It's like, that I know exactly what you're talking about, but I get this big smile on my face every time I see the movie, and that happens. It's so good. It's so good. Just Goldsmith is just kind of mining that script or an idea and throwing it in there, and without you knowing, but he's gone back to 40s noir, and it's so brilliant.
Yeah.
Just want to welcome Retro Reels real fast. And T. Pinsack said he loves Goldsmith's The Mummy. And Anders says he listened to Tron Legacy today.
Awesome. I listened to that yesterday.
And then Mr. Pinsack has like $1 million question for us. When searching for soundtracks, are you looking for complete a composer's works, a score that appeals to you? How do you choose what to acquire? Who wants to handle that one first?
Well, very quickly, when I first started collecting Jerry Goldsmith over 30 years ago, I tended to collect anything that had music by Jerry Goldsmith on, whether I liked it or not. And there are some Jerry Goldsmith soundtracks that I don't really like that much. There was a score he did from the late 80s. It was all electronic. It was a thriller directed by Martin
Criminal
Campbell.
Law.
Criminal Law. It's not a very good listen. No. It's, I mean, I've still got it on LP. I've probably listened to it once or twice. It's a bit dull. So when it comes to collecting soundtracks, I'm not going for complete works of somebody, going for the stuff that I really like. That's the way I've done it for the past kind of 15 years or so.
Yeah, when I was active, going to stores and looking for albums, I mean, there were 3 composers that were instant buys. So it was Williams, it was Horner, it was Goldsmith. It didn't matter what it was, I picked it up. And And most of the time I was really happy with my selection. Other times it was Mr. Baseball. Admittedly, there's about 2 okay tracks in that one. That's a tough one. But yeah, those were the 3 that I could count on, and the ones that I wanted, and they are still the composers that I have the most soundtracks of. But there are other times where, you know, I'd jump on a message board and someone would talk about something, and I'd be like, okay, that's cool. I want to go out and get that. And I would. And most of the time my stuff was blind buys. There were very few instances where I went to the theater and heard a score and said, okay, now I got to go and get that. And the only times that really happened was when, you know, you see the movie and the soundtrack wasn't released for like 2 or 3 months. And Air Force One is a perfect example of that. I could not wait to get my hands on that. And I think at that time, we thought there was no way they were going to release it because there was no plans for it. And it came out much later. So yeah, it was either to complete my Horner, Goldsmith, Williams collection, or other times I'm just flipping through and I'd see something interesting. Maybe it was a compilation, or it was a composer I knew of, and I thought, okay, well, this could be good. So yeah, that's how I went about picking soundtracks. And other times it was just I needed something for my radio show. I needed something different. And I only had a small collection when I started doing the radio show, and so I thought that I would buy a new soundtrack once a week and play that on the show, whether it was new or old. And then re-recordings were a big thing. I used to, like, when I found my first Gerhardt album, I would skip over Golden Age releases all the time. They weren't my jam at all. And all I thought was how they sounded, the archival sound of Golden Age scores, which really turned me off. And it still isn't my thing, but I can appreciate it a little bit more now. But once I found Charles Gerhardt and I found the Friends Waxman album first, and I heard Prince Valiant for the very first time, I mean, that immediately jumped up into one of my favorite scores of all time. And then finding that collection, and then that was another one where it's like I needed to find every single Gerhardt album, and they weren't all available. And it took years for me to complete that collection. So, but that was a watershed moment for me to then that's when I started getting into the Golden Age stuff, and like, oh my goodness, the amount of stuff that was out there I needed everything Korngold. I needed everything Waxman. I needed everything Roja. and it was just so much. And then, you know, in the 90s, when everybody, like Film Score Monthly, was releasing those albums, it was like I needed all of those, and I just couldn't get enough. Yeah, there was a point where I was buying one soundtrack a day, usually, and yeah,
Wow.
yeah, that was. And then, of course, there was the albums that were coming in as promos for my show, and it just got out of hand. So, but yeah, there's some things where I wanted to complete the collection for sure, and there's still a few gaps, but I just have so much to listen to now that I'm just, well, I'll get to it one of these days.
I must admit, I've only started picking up kind of older scores. You know, as you say, people like Franz Waxman, Miklos Roja, in the past 10 years or so. Because up to that point, my taste in music, I always found that older film scores to be a bit overly melodramatic. You know, wonderful music and, you know, wonderful orchestrations and all that, but it just wasn't my cup of tea. I don't know what changed. Maybe it's me getting older, but I'm appreciating them more now. And I saw, I don't know if you've heard of, there's an English conductor called John Wilson, who does recordings of MGM musicals a lot. But at the BBC Proms a few years back, he did a concert of Golden Age scores. So he did Ben-Hur and various other things. But as his encore, he did The Ride to Dubno from Taras Bulba. And I'd never heard it before.
Oh, wow.
I'd never heard it before.
Wow.
And, you know, those times where you hear a piece of music for the first time and you're just, wow. I was just absolutely blown away by it.
Yeah.
And luckily, I'd recorded that concert, and I still have it. It was just stunning.
Yeah, that's a showstopper.
It is.
The Taras Bulba score is incredible. But
Yeah.
my first time with Taras Bulba was the Gerhardt recording, which is just I mean, those recordings are probably, I would say, the best film music re-recordings of all time. Just the Kenneth Wilkinson's recording, the National Philharmonic, the venues that they were, it was just so perfect. But the Ride Dubno, I mean, you couldn't ask for a better ending to an album. And again, if I was programming a concert, I would end every concert with that. It's a crowd pleaser. And so Daniel, if you haven't heard Taras Bulba, then you better get it. Taras Bulba, TARASBULBA. So there's a whole bunch of different releases. If you want to hear it for the very first time, check out Gerhardt's performance. It's a 4.5-minute piece. It almost feels like Saber Dance. I think it's very influenced by the Saber Dance. After you hear that, I think the best recording you want to get is the Tadlow complete release, because the original albums are a smaller orchestra. It's a studio orchestra. It's not the film tracks, and they're very, very, very small sounding. But Tadlow did a brilliant job with their recording. It sounds unbelievable. The gypsy music it's unreal how fast it is. Virtuosic. There's only a certain amount of orchestras that could play that and play it perfectly. But you can't go wrong with Franz Waxman, and Taras Bulba is one of his best.
Speaking about orchestras, I got 2 nights tickets for The Empire Strikes Back with the Boston Pop. I'd been on the fence for the longest time about, am I going to go? Am I not going to go? And I would look, and airline flights would be $200, and I'm like, I'll go. And then I went to buy a ticket, and it was at $600, and I'm like, I can't do $600 on a ticket. But like stars aligned, and it fell into place, and I commit. So it's done.
So you saying you're going to 2 shows?
Yeah, they're doing it the 2nd, the 3rd, and the 4th. I'm going to the 2nd and the 3rd.
Excellent.
Couldn't you get tickets for the 4th?
I could, but hotels in Boston that weekend are trending like $300 on the low side, and it's like, I'll do the 2 nights, but that's about the most I could do. So I wanted to do all 3, but to be gone 3 nights from the house and away from the dogs, and it takes a lot for me to leave town. It's very difficult for me to leave town. So.
And remember to stay all the way to the end credits.
Yes. And yell at the people who get up.
Like they have intermission. I'm like, this is boring.
Yeah. They do have an intermission.
They do.
And I'm trying to think of what do they play coming out of the intermission? I don't remember. They played The Adventures of Mutt for the Raiders Lost Ark concert. But I can't remember what they played for. I think they might. Did they play the Love Theme? Play Han and Leia? I can't remember. But it's time I want to spend some money. So how many you got on your list right now?
So I can get Taras Bulba. Oh, that's the LP. Probably rather get this.
Yeah, the LP will be that small.
It's the original MGM soundtrack. Is that okay, or?
It's a small sounding recording.
Orchestra?
Like there's 50 players. This thing needs the Tadlow treatment, so it's I don't think it's out of print, so you should be able to get it for a good price through Tadlow's website. And it's phenomenal. And do you have the Charles Gerhardt classic film score set?
Yeah.
So you have that? Yeah. So yeah, listen to listen to the Franz Waxman album, the last track on that one. You'll
The
have
City
an
of
idea.
Prague. That one's pretty good, I would
Yep,
imagine.
that's it. So that's the Tadlow, City of
that's it.
Prague, Nick Rain.
Yeah.
Here's what I'm gonna say: pick up all the Tadlow releases. I think that it's True Grit. True Grit was their first one, and if you start from there and you pick up everything else that they've done, the thing is, they weren't a great orchestra when I started hearing them in the 90s. I mean, they did some things really well, and then other times they really were struggling. But once they started getting, I think, more practice time, more rehearsal time, more time to really do these albums properly, you can hear the improvements, and they are fantastic. And there's even an improvement in the sound of the recordings as well. I always found the 90s stuff to be way too brash and overly compressed and produced, and now they just feel so brilliantly dynamic. Like El Cid. Wow. I had never seen that movie, and I listened to the score from Tadlow's release, and then I went out and I had to see the movie. I had to experience that score in context, and it didn't disappoint. But the El Cid might be their best recording ever, and it's a great release. Now, they released it twice. I think there's a 3 CD set. There's a 2 CD set. Both are great. What is on the 3? What's on the third disc? I can't remember.
If it's James Fitzpatrick producing, it might be a lot of random stuff.
Yeah, you're right. Like that. That's what I like about the Blue Max. There were a whole bunch of great suites that he filled out disc 2 with. Those are great.
I say random. That's doing those CDs a disservice. They're obviously thought out, and it's obviously music that James loves, that he's getting the chance to record. So
they were like original versions or first takes of certain of a recording that they were doing for this. And then there's the Double Indemnity suite, which plays at the end as well. You're not really missing out on much if you only find the 2 CD set.
Yeah.
You get the whole complete score on 2 CDs, and it's the entr'acte is unbelievable. Such a great score. I can't believe a one man wrote this for just one movie. All of that material. It blows my mind, the work that Roger did. It's unbelievable what he's done, what he did in his career.
Going back to the early days of City of Prague, they used to do a lot of compilation albums. And I don't know if you got it in the States or in Canada. There's a film magazine here in the UK called Total Film.
No.
It started in about 97, but they used to give out free copies of CDs, and it was the Prague Orchestra. And as you say, in the early days, in the kind of 90s, when they were first becoming known, some of the brass work in their recordings was just, it wasn't great, but to hear them now, it's like a completely new orchestra. It's just stunning performances.
I think there's a wonderful balance with the recordings now. Again, it took them time to figure it all out, but I think that the brass was recorded way too hot. It was just always forward in that mix. And you're right. There was just something not right about their tone.
Yeah.
But the one early album, this is one of the first compilation albums I ever picked up, just because I couldn't find all these scores. So I was like, all right, I can dabble and hear suites of these scores to see if I like it. And it was called Alien Invasion. And I think it was called Volume 2. And it had David Arnold was actually a guest conductor on the album, and he recorded the end credits suites. No, sorry, Nicholas Dodd conducted that, the end credits for Independence Day, a completely brand new recording on it. And for the most part, that album is pretty solid and includes a whole bunch of stuff that I'd never heard before. Like they did Starship Troopers. I was hearing Battle Beyond the Stars for the first time. And that's great to have a wonderful digital recording, new recording of that. There was the Dune Suite. There Mars Attacks was really well recorded, and I think it was the film version of that cue. Then what was the other one that was? Oh, the War of the Worlds Suite, the Leith Stevens score. There was 10 minutes of that on there, and I was like, wow, this is fantastic. So it's a great 2 CD set of just, I mean, if you were new to film music, this might be something I would hand to you and say, here, give a listen to this and see if you like it. And if you do, then you most likely will become a film music fan. It's a really well done compilation for an early City of Prague album when their early stuff was more miss than hit.
Yeah, I must admit in the 90s and probably late 80s into the 90s, lots of these scores that we now take for granted now because they've been released just weren't in circulation or released at all. So compilation albums, especially like the Cincinnati Pops, Eric Kunzel, yes. Some of his recordings were absolutely stunning. And I had about 10 or 12, or still have them, of their compilation CDs. And the performance of the Cincinnati Pops is just, it's so precise, and so the quality of the recordings are just great as well.
Yeah.
I think I mentioned it on, you were rewatching a film, and I was commenting on the board, and I said the only thing I didn't like about the Cincinnati Pops recordings was they used to do like 3-minute sections of just sound effects of whatever it was, just space sound effects, explosions, laser guns, or whatever it was, and thought I could do without those little sections. Just give me the music, that's fine.
Yeah,
but yeah,
I don't know what the point of that was, but maybe it was as a demo for they were recording in something called, it was a surround technology that they were using, but you could use only 2 speakers, but you would get this surround effect to it. And I mean, to be fair, the Great Fantasy Adventure album, which still remains one of my favorite albums of all time, had had the Jurassic Park, the T-Rex attack just before Jurassic Park. And I always felt that was wonderful. It was a really good recording. And then before Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, they had the bow and arrow being fired just before that happened. And then I will have to say this, though, their recording of Brad Fiedel's Terminator, which starts off with all the compressors and pistons and all that sound, that then bleeds into the piece itself and becomes a part of the piece.
Yeah, and I don't mind that.
Yeah, and that's really good. And it's I think it's the finest performance of Terminator I have ever heard. The arrangement is incredible. It is, the only thing I don't really like is the ending where they have that explosion, which really just sounds like your speakers are going to blow out. It's the only part of the track, it's right at the end, that I don't like, but the rest of it, using actual pistons and compressors and as part of that mix, was a stroke of genius. And that track, if you can find that one, wow. And you're right, the recordings were always fantastic. The performances were always just so spot on. I mean, really. Yeah. I mean, later on in Kunzel's career, the recording started to get a little bit more muddy. The conducting wasn't as precise, but when you had Kunzel in his prime, which was the 80s through till the 90s, that stuff is tough to beat. And even his classical recordings, the other Pops recordings he was doing, are spectacular. And I managed to find all those as well, and they are incredible listens. The Aaron Copland album that he did is stunning. It's so good. And he does another one called Orchestral or Spectacular Orchestral Performances or something like that. And they're just massive pieces of classical music for 50 minutes. And it all has that patented Cincinnati Pops sound. I don't know how they did it, but they have a very distinct sound.
Definitely.
And everything the dynamics were incredible too. But yeah, they recorded, like, big bass drum hits. Like, go listen to the Empire Strikes Back, the Imperial March recording. And when they hit that bass drum, man, you feel it. You really do feel it. Much like the Utah Symphony recordings too. The way this Utah Symphony were recording their film music albums, man, they had some thump to them. And they were just really bright and punchy, but they had body, and whew, they could stop your heart.
Silence.
We'll end that conversation there.
I was thinking about that Star Wars trilogy Utah Symphony album. Yeah, I bought it on tape, then I bought it on CD, then I bought it on LP. If I can just get the 8-track, I'll be complete.
Yeah, it's that's one of those albums you would test your new hi-fi setup on. It's that good.
Speaking of new setups, because I know y'all love record players.
Yay.
Audio Techniques is coming out with the 50th anniversary, a bunch of letters, bunch of numbers edition. It's supposed to ship in July. It's $1,100. Yeah, it comes in black, gray, yellow, red, green, cream, beige, or white, I think.
Wow.
Use your color.
Is it a turntable?
Yes. It's a professional DJ turntable. It'll play 45s, 33s, and 78s. It'll play backwards.
That's what you want.
That's handy.
I'm like, I don't know, $1,200. I can buy like 1 or 2 CDs with that. I mean, I can't buy that Shadow soundtrack that Ian showed us last week. But
here's my question for you, and concerning turntables and the equipment that goes into producing the best sound possible for vinyl. I mean, do you know what is good and what you need in order to best present those albums and get you the best sound possible without, let's say, breaking the bank? Like, can you tell, or do you know that this $1,100 turntable that you might be purchasing is better than what you have? I mean, or would you have to actually go out and then test it yourself?
I mean, it plays 78s, so that's good. I don't have a lot of 78s, but there's a crap ton of Arthur Fiedler Boston Pops LPs on 78, and I would like to start collecting those.
So you're looking for an all-in-one? Is that why? Or could you not get a player that plays 78s that would be a lot cheaper?
You can. Audio Techniques makes one. I think it's around $400, and it plays 78s, 45s, and 33s. Wow. And it's got USB ports. You can hook it up to your computer and download the file digitally, which you cannot do with this new $1,200 one. But
would you actually listen to the 78s, though? Would you actually physically put them on and sit down and just listen to them?
I would. Yeah.
Okay.
I would also like to just burn them on CD and then just, follow the 78.
I'd have stopped halfway through that statement and said I would have just burned them. As in,
I think they would more melt than burn.
Yeah. No, I'm very curious because in order to get the best sound for vinyl, you really do have to spend a considerable amount and do a considerable amount in order to make sure that you're getting the peak performance for the format. And I know that some people really do like that aspect of playing and collecting vinyl. I don't have the patience for that. Like, I wouldn't be the type of person going, oh my God, I got to save $300 for a new cartridge and then put that into my player. And then like a year later going, oh wait, there's a new one out and it's $700, but it might play my stuff better. And I'm just wondering, where does it end?
Stop?
Yeah, because I know that there's people who spend hundreds of thousands of dollars just to get that peak performance, and I get it. Like they'll tap into the city electric system and make sure that they get the best. It's insane. It's great. I mean, if you have the money to do it, fine. If that makes you happy, cool. But I'm just, again, as a CD digital guy, just I could pop a disc into any any CD player and it's gonna sound great no matter what I'm playing it in. And I just feel it would just like I couldn't imagine grabbing a brand new vinyl and popping that on my player and then putting a needle on it and just what's gonna happen. So yeah, that's and on top of that, I think I might have got into vinyl if it wasn't such a collector's market where people are just hoarding this stuff because it's limited edition and it's in the hundreds, not in the thousands.
Yeah.
And there's all these variants and whatever. And it is, I think, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but is it more about the collectability than it is about the music?
I enjoy the packaging on some of them. Because I'm working on my Mondo video. Like they just reissued Kill Our Dracula. And
that's beautiful.
The artwork in it. And I enjoy that. But I think, and I enjoy, I wake up, and I go let the wolf pack out and I walk by the record player that I have at my work table and I hit the start button and the record starts.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll go back by 20 minutes later and hit it again. And I enjoy that. It does seem to have a different sound to it.
Oh, yeah.
I think some people are getting into it because it's like the end thing to get into. It's like, does everyone like $12 coffees? I mean, really? Or are they just drinking it because everyone else is drinking them?
Right.
And there are some things that you can't get on CD or tape. There's some old John Williams stuff. He just played piano. I got a jazz LP. It was a band that was around. I think they got 4 or 5 LPs. One LP, he played piano for him.
Right.
I've got it. I'd love to be able to make a CD and send you all a copy of it. I like that. But
and I definitely appreciate that. I really do, because that's what I was doing back in maybe 20 years ago when I was looking for stuff like Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom and Space Camp, and knowing that those CDs were ridiculous, but I could go to a record show. And that was the great thing about it back then, because nobody was collecting this stuff. Everybody's offloading vinyl. So it was like $5 to $10. But now all of a sudden it's become this collectible thing where, I mean, brand new, like for that Keelar album of yours, La La Land was selling that as a complete album for what?
Complete. $30, $35.
But is that how much it was on La La Land, or was that how much it was on the vinyl?
No, on vinyl, I think I paid $40, $45 for it, and it's just the original soundtrack presentation. Wow. It's not the expanded.
That blows my mind. That really does, and I think that's one of the biggest turnoffs for me. One of the biggest turnoffs was though and I still think it happens when there are, the physical release is only vinyl, and you're not going to get a CD release, and you might get the digital album, and I can understand. But but that irks me the most. But it also irks me that the price of some of these things, like brand new of just the album itself, is close to $50.
Yeah,
that's insane. That's crazy. And that's where it's aimed more towards the collectors. And then that also, I mean, it's not that it doesn't happen with CDs. I mean, I'm sure there's people that just hoard a whole bunch of the Vrez albums or the La La Land albums, and then they'll sell it on eBay for a fortune later. But their yield is a lot more, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 copies. Whereas I find that, I mean, I don't know how much Mondo or Waxworks or whomever's releasing it makes, but let's say Tron Legacy comes out again, and now they're going to do it on a blue splatter, whatever. They're going to release only 50 of those, right? And everybody's mad, and they're like, well, we're going to release another one in 6 months, but now it's going to be a light cycle, light blue splatter, and we're going to put one more track on it, but you're still going to pay $50, but that's going to go out of print immediately. And it just feels like there's like 7 or 8 different versions. They're just hosing these collectors. And again, they're not forcing anybody to buy them, but that just seems to be a bit evil.
It is. I mean? I think eventually that'll crash on itself. It's like the comic book industry. It's like, here's Spider-Man number 450. We're gonna do 12 different variant covers. You got to get all 12 of them. I'm like, no, I'm gonna get one, maybe two. Yeah, I'm not playing that game. I just want the music.
Right. And I remember that happening with the who's the artist for who's the new artist for Spider-Man, and they had all those different variants. Anyway, he just kind of came out of nowhere. He eventually went and created Spawn.
Todd
McFarlane, that's it. And I remember I would go to these flea markets when I went to cottage country here in Ontario, and there was all these comic book stands, and so I saw Spider-Man #1, which was the McFarlane new stories, and he had like carte blanche to do whatever he wanted, but there were 5 different versions of the cover.
Yeah.
And idiot me decides, well, I want the one that looks like the normal cover. But apparently it was like the gold and silver ones that if you have those now, they're worth thousands of dollars. And my version is like $20. And I was like, and I can still remember that going, who's going to want these alternate versions of them? And then I was like, darn it. I mean, still, I don't care. I mean, I enjoyed reading the books, and but I can clearly remember just missing out on that collectible, or the collectible versions of those. But that's where I feel like, I mean, if that's happened in comics, it feels like that's what's going on with LPs and vinyl.
Yeah.
Could you imagine how many CD variations there would be, like on How to Train Your Dragon by Verizon, if they only released like 100 copies? People would go crazy.
Like Mondo just re-released Clue on LP. I think they did 4 different colors. I mean, I don't really care. I mean, if I got my choice, I'll pick the one that I like the most, but it sold out like immediately, and I missed it because I don't know, I was living that day or something, and I wasn't glued to the internet, and I didn't know about it. And now it's like, you know, it's sold for $35 that day. The very day, later in the day, $150, $200 on eBay. And I'm just like, I fucking hate you people, because you can only buy one per household.
Right.
So, a whole bunch of people intentionally bought this just to resell it.
Yeah.
And that kind of irritates me.
Yeah. And I don't, I mean, again, nobody's forcing anybody to buy them for $150 afterwards.
No, absolutely right.
But there's still just like, it just seems slimy. And I never got into this for the collectability of it. I mean, there's some things that I'm glad that I have, like I have the original, you know, those Lord of the Rings complete recordings, and they're beautiful on CD, and they're great. I'm glad I have them. I mean, you know, one of the reasons I have
them on vinyl. Do you?
No, I don't have them on vinyl. But weren't those like,
do you know what they
thousands
cost?
of dollars now?
Yeah.
But I was given like I purchased Fellowship and Two Towers myself, but then when Beth Krakauer was still alive, and if anybody knows who she is, she was a publicist, and she did a lot of PR for film music. She was a lovely lady, but she died of cancer a few years ago. Really, really sad, but she was fantastic. She was like one of the first people that I was ever in contact with when I started my radio show, and she sent me a whole bunch of stuff. Well, she got the Return of the King what do they call it, campaign. Mm-hmm. And so she sent me Return of the King, but it was in like this, there's a promo version of it. I wish I could show it to you because it's really, really unique. But it's literally just kind of like CDRs with just, you know, stickers on the front saying, you know, Return of the King disc 1, 2, 3, and 4. It's in like this clamshell case, really bare bones, but it was so I could play the music on my show, which I appreciate. And I have many, many albums that look like that. Like Spider-Man 3, for instance, I have like 5 tracks that were sent to me from Christopher Young's agents. And that's how
those are awesome to have.
And sorry?
Those are awesome to have.
Yeah. And maybe I'll show it to you. See if I have Spider-Man. Yeah, there it is. Okay. So this is exactly what the promo to Spider-Man 3 looks like.
Yeah.
Okay, that's how they sent it out. That's the CDR. And these were the tracks that they gave me. So it wasn't even complete. But that's what they sent out for radio. And yeah, it's CDR. But as far as I know, this is all that was sent out, because everything else is just based on, it's all bootlegs from whomever. But this was legit. This actually came from his PR company. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. But that's the sort of release I got for Return of the King. But then I realized that, the story's eventually going to end, guys. I had to go out and find the Return of the King release, because it just looks so weird on my shelf, having those two beautiful boxes of Fellowship and Two Towers. And I had this, bare bones Return of the King promo. And so I had to go out and get it because of the way it looks. I already had the music, but I just wanted it to look nice on my shelf. So
yeah,
I guess I can understand that collectability mentality, but I wouldn't do it for everything.
No, I understand that, but back to your question, like at what point is it like, too much? And see, I'm like on the fence with this new record player. And I did what I usually do when I'm on the fence about something. I called my best friend, because he's very level-headed. He's an accountant. And I was like, Jonathan, so Techniques is coming out with his 50th anniversary, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, well, do you have to pay to reserve it? And I'm like, it's probably going to sell out within like a couple of days. And then it'll ship in July, and it'll be on eBay for 3 times as much. And he's like, go ahead and pre-order it. And you got a couple months to think about it. I'm like, that's right. So I pre-ordered it. So I've got one reserved. I got the red one. But I'm like, buy a lot of music with that.
Right.
And you're right. At what point is good enough more than good enough? Because I'm very happy with the setup I got right here. I'm happy with the setup I got out in the garage. I'm gonna do another setup in the library when I get it done. And I'm kind of thinking that's where I'm gonna put this one, is in the library. But they make another one that plays 78s, and it's like $400. And it's like,
is it a high quality turntable? Like, where does it?
It's a professional DJ grade turntable. This is like the go-to turntable for a whole bunch of DJs.
Okay. So you're looking to do some record scratching of Star Wars albums?
No. I'm looking to just press play and listen. No. Although I wonder what the Desert Chase sounds like in reverse.
That would be weird.
I don't know if you can spin it at any speed, you could play it really, really quickly as well.
Ooh.
So if you haven't got
I could play it at 78 speed. It'd be over in like 2 minutes.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
But I'm on the fence, so we're gonna have to do some soul searching, and that was another holdup on my not committing to the Boston trip, because I'm like,
I can't afford it.
That and Eric Woods is like bleeding me dry every week. But,
yeah. You're welcome.
Pinsack, if you collect movie one sheets, I got back in the day, like the 90s, I'd get all the posters from the video store, and they're still rolled up in tubes. And if you would like them, you let me know, and you just like kick me $15 for shipping. I will send you probably 100 or more posters in the mail.
Wow.
Because they're not doing me any good, and I'm at that point in my life. I'm trying to consolidate a little bit. So if you want some movie posters, you let me know, my friend.
Yeah, that was another thing I used to collect. I used to collect movie posters, one sheets, and I got a bunch that are down in the basement. Now the thing is, 2 houses ago, I had an incredible basement, which had a very, very long hallway before you got into the main room. Mm-hmm. So I was able to frame about 12 posters on the wall. So as you walked down the hall, you can see all of my beautiful one sheets. But the only one that I do have, this one right here, the only thing that sucks about it was folded. You can see the crease right there. So a buddy of mine bought me the one sheet of Temple of Doom, and it just sucks that it was folded. But let's see, like the other ones, these are just like cheap prints. and my Back to the Future one as well. But I have a bunch of them downstairs in the basement that are just in a big portfolio, and I have no room to put them anywhere. But that was a big thing. I used to have posters all over like my bedroom when I was a teenager, and that was so much fun.
This is like,
holy cow!
This is like my entire house.
Cow! That's amazing. Wow, I wish I could do that in my house. That'd be nice. That looks great.
Thank you.
Do you guys archive your music on a NAS or something? What's an NES?
Yeah, so that's my question.
All that I know is that everything that I own is digitally, it's been ripped and it's on my hard drive and backed up again. Speaking of, I'm doing a backup right now. So yeah, it takes a while.
I've been backed up, so if my house burned down, I would be crying a lot.
Yeah, I have one of my storage hard drive. Oh yeah, so yeah, one of my backups it's at my wife's office, so that'll stay there, and I'll back that up. I should be backing it up monthly, but I don't. But I don't have anything online. I don't keep it in the cloud. Oh, I'm lying. I am so lying. I totally forgot about Backblaze. Backblaze keeps everything on my computer, and I mean everything. That's up in the cloud. And I have to, the only way I can access it is go to the site, and then I have to physically pick the track that I want, and then they zip it to me. They zip file it to me. So it's not like Dropbox or Google Drive or anything like that where everybody has access to it. It's just in a vault, but it's everything. It was the weirdest thing. Like it I just wanted my music, but it took everything. Every single file that is on my Mac is in the cloud somewhere, which is weird, but yeah, it's like terabytes of information. But my computer crashed. How long did that take? Oh, it took weeks. Sure. And I would only schedule it out at in the evening. So when I was sleeping, it was working hard, but it took a while to get up there. But if I'm looking at it now, I can't really get the stats, but it's like anytime I add a file, it starts backing up. So if I download a picture, it's like gone. It's already up there. So anything and everything. So I had to access music because when my Mac died on me a couple of years ago, there was some stuff that my computer just couldn't find, and my time machine on my Mac wasn't working properly. So that's how I gathered some of the information. And yeah, they zip file it to you, or they'll send you a USB key for like a few bucks that has just everything on it. It's kind of neat. So yeah.
Wow.
I just don't want to miss anything. Yeah, that's right. If my house burns down, it's like, God, it's all gone. All gone.
Well, dark thought, if you're in the house when it burns down, there's no need for a backup.
Not me to worry about it. Probably bad watching that, right?
Yeah, I'd be really sad if, oh man, that's just this is a lifetime of music.
Yeah.
That's what I never understood the people who have like just a digital collection and sold all their physical stuff. I mean, it's
there's people in the Facebook group that say that all the time, saying that they've ripped their CDs, and sometimes they're very nice about it. They pass them on to people that don't have them because they have their copies digitally. But I couldn't do that. I need to have those hard copies just for sentimental value and
exactly
as another form of backup as well.
Yes. Yeah, I mean that's it. I can remember when I started off in this, just being in awe of some of the numbers that I was reading for some of these collections that these people had. They were in the thousands. I'm like, man, I would love to just have everything at my fingertips. And I mean, I think I have about everything that I ever wanted, and it's at my fingertips. But I also consider this a library, because you forget that there's liner notes in here.
Yeah.
Beautiful essays written by top film music people, and that would be that's the difficult thing. I couldn't get rid of all that information. There's days where I'll just sit in this chair behind me and I'll just flip through a book, and it's It's wonderful, just absolutely wonderful. And I don't have time to scan all that stuff in and keep that all on the computer. So yeah, it's really great to kind of, pull out a soundtrack that you haven't played in years, and hopefully it's got some information in there that's interesting to read. But yeah, it's more of a library of film music information now.
Yeah, I must admit there are nights if I'm not reading a book at a particular time, I'll take out some CDs, take out the liner notes, take those to bed, and read those in bed.
Yeah.
Some of the kind of behind the scenes stories about recording the scores are fascinating. Well,
I agree.
To me,
I'm with you.
And
I'm totally with you. That is one of my favorite things that if they don't put it in the book, I really miss it. It's the tech talk. And I'm glad that like Doug Fake does that in the Entrada releases, where I really do want to know what the source is. How did they find it? What did they do? And how did they assemble this album? And that's way more fascinating than anything else to me. Especially if you get like a really great sounding album from something that sounded like crap on its original release. It's like, what did you do and what did you find and how? Like the Die Hard stuff. Like remember the first release of Die Hard on Varese sounded just dreadful. And now, that 30th anniversary release, you're like, how did they make it sound so good? And that's fascinating to me.
Well, yeah, I read those bits as well, and I must admit I don't understand 90% of what they say in those bits, but I read through them all because these people have gone through a hell of a lot of work to get these things sounding as good as they do.
Yeah,
and I'll pick up some things, but it's just fascinating, and it just the mind boggles at how much work goes into these releases.
Yep, I agree. Yeah. And it's years. Sometimes it's years to get it done. So 10,000 soundtracks? Holy smokes. Wow. Yeah. If anybody has a collection, again, I would just, even if you're against digitizing, I would digitize and put it up in the cloud. I would keep at least if you're all about the music, at least you got it. If something terrible happens, you still have the music.
So for those people who have like Amish tendencies and don't really understand that whole cloud bit, how exactly do you do that?
Sorry?
So like for us Amish type people who don't understand this whole cloud thing, how does that work?
So you can buy terabytes of space that are, they say it's in the cloud, but it's obviously living on a server somewhere. And you're essentially just uploading all your stuff to somewhere that doesn't live on, your hard drive or on your computer. So like Dropbox, once you upload something to Dropbox, that no longer, the track still lives on your computer, but that version that you've uploaded it's not on your computer. It's now safe. It's safe somewhere in some giant facility in Arizona. I don't know. It's on a hard drive somewhere else. That you can easily access. And access from any computer as well. So you can have like a Google Drive or Dropbox. There's numerous cloud-based apps that you can use where you can just upload all your digital stuff and save it and then access it whenever you want, wherever you want. So, and you got to pay like a monthly fee, but if you really want to keep your digital collection safe, like Backblaze for me is $60 a year, but it doesn't have, but it's literally just backup somewhere else that's not here. And so I don't access it like a Dropbox. Like with Dropbox, you can send a link to somebody and they can play the music or play the track or see a video file or access a document, like instantaneous. Again, Backblaze isn't like that. It is just a place where you keep your stuff. And then if you need to get it back as a backup, then you can get it. But it's not accessible like a Dropbox file.
So it's like a storage facility.
Storage facility, yeah.
You store your stuff there and get it out when you need it. Yeah.
Right. And then if I need it, I can access it and then they will send me the file. But I like that. It's $60. Most cloud-based accounts are $10, $20. Depends on how much space you have. That's monthly too. So it depends on how much you want to spend, and then how you want to access your stuff later on. So, but yeah, but the great thing about cloud-based stuff, it's nowhere near you, and it's always available to you as long as you keep paying. So, yeah. Hope that made sense.
So Daniel, are you going to go and buy that now because Eric suggested it?
I still have trouble. I like something that I can this is mine,
Yeah.
and it's like, oh, okay, that's mine. It's
Yes.
so hard.
Do you have anything digitally, or do you play everything physically, or do you ever play anything?
Either
digitally?
that, or I just go to YouTube and I'm like, according to YouTube, I listen to the Desert Chase a whole hell of a lot, but I'll just type in like what I want to listen to today. I'll like John Williams' Accidental Tourist soundtrack and just press play. But I've got it on LP, I've got it on tape, I've got it on CD.
But when you're home, it's physical, right? You pull
when
out
I'm home, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Like, and I stream just everything through the house if I need it. So if I'm downstairs, that's where my good status setup is, but it's streaming what I have up here down there. And I love that. I'll just hit shuffle, and it's hundreds of thousands of tracks it goes through. It's kind of fun to be surprised by what you're about to hear. And there's some stuff that I have it. I don't even realize that I have it, and I'm hearing it for the very first time. It's fascinating. It really is.
That's what I love about having everything downloaded, and then everything on this thing is the speed I can access. If I'm listening to one track and it reminds me of something else, and go, oh yeah, I'll listen to that now.
Yeah.
And then literally within a few seconds, I can listen to it without having to go into the clean room of the two guys and put a record on. And do you know what I used to hate about playing records is you used to put the needle on, no matter how much I'd cleaned it or thought I'd cleaned the record, you'd see that buildup of stuff at the back of the needle, and you think, is that dust or is that plastic being scraped off the record and just like you're planing a piece of wood?
Yeah.
It didn't make any sense, but I was thinking, could that be just plastic being scraped away?
I think it's dust.
I think it's dust.
Yeah.
I mean, I live with 8 dogs, and I mean, it's my constant companion.
What was interesting about LP and then moving on to digital, like when I first, and I know this is getting away from soundtracks, but my first experience with Meatloaf's Batted to Hell was on my dad's LP. But there was one portion in the song where it wouldn't skip, but there was a definite click, and it happened at the exact same time because there was a scratch in the record at that point. But then I listened to the CD and it wasn't there, but I still kind of feel like it is, because it was so ingrained in my brain, having listened to it hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times, that I know the exact spot when it happens. And it's not there, but it's there. It's such a weird thing. And I don't know whether you have that experience, Daniel, with your LP collection, where there's like a specific sound that just now has become ingrained in your brain. But obviously it's not part of the track, but now it has become part of the experience.
Not with LPs, because I don't have pretty much everything I have on LP. I've been listening to either on tape or CD for years, and it's got a different tone to it on the LP.
Do you clean up your digital recordings, or do you just go directly to CD? Like, I don't know how you go about doing it, but do you record it digitally and then burn to CD, or do you just burn directly to CD?
I've never burned anything to CD. Yeah.
So when you listen to your LP, like you say, do you still listen to your LP, or do you listen to it once and then like you've digitized it, or
no,
are you still listening to LPs?
If I want to listen to an LP, I listen to an LP.
Oh, okay. I thought you were one play, then you have it on CD and you just listen to the CD.
Like Ant-Man's been on the LP player in this room for like the last week or so, and every morning I just play,
Okay.
And then eventually I put the side over, play,
Right.
So.
Okay.
Do you know what? The first time I played Ant-Man, I was listening to the Ant-Man theme, and it starts off really, really quietly, din, 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 and then it goes bum, bum, bum. And I remember listening to it really quite loud and thinking, oh, this is really good. And every time I listen to it, it scares the shit out of me.
You know that it reminds me of James Horner's Aliens, and it has those woodwind spikes, whenever anything scary happens, very distinct to that score. But what I didn't realize is, and Robert Townsend, you're such a jerk, is at the end of that album, he puts 2 more of them right at the end of the album. So when that last track ends and you're like, oh, it must be over. I don't know how many more seconds goes by, but then he adds 2 stingers right at the end of the album. And if you don't expect them, man, you're changing your pants. It is terrifying.
I'm going to have to listen to that.
Yeah. It's right at the end of, and I talked about it on my podcast as well. And I just couldn't believe that he did that. Aliens Deluxe Edition. So it's the hyperspace alternate ending. And I'm trying to see where would it, yeah, like the track ends with 33 seconds of what you think is going to be silence. But then as you go a little further, there's 2 more just of those alien spikes, and it's crazy. Yeah, so hyperspace alternate ending.
If you were properly listening to it and it got to the end of that track, you might have turned it off before those 2 stings.
That or you've turned it up.
Yeah.
It ends very, very quiet. Very quiet. And so, but if you're not paying attention, right? Like if you're doing something else, but it's all very, it's like, I don't know if you can hear that. It's just very ominous. And then, yeah, so now we're at silence. "24 seconds. 20.
Fuck.
So that's at 17. And you're thinking, oh my God, it's over. 8 seconds left, and he does it again. Townsend's a jerk.
That's brilliant.
Isn't it? So you go for about 12 seconds of just nothing. And yeah, he hits you twice. And I remember hearing it for the first time, like, what? What?
Yeah, that scared me just listening to it over this.
Yeah. And yeah, I'm rarely just kind of sitting there paying attention to an album. I'm doing other stuff. And if you got it on headphones, look out. Yeah. So there's a little Easter egg that they put on that album.
Sweet. Talking of Easter eggs, I remember when was it the Total Recall, the deluxe edition came out on Varese.
Mm-hmm.
Right at the very end of the album, you get the for the memory of a lifetime, recall. Yeah, after a huge amount of silence.
Yep. Yeah,
love that.
Those are fun.
Yeah.
Well, like, I mean, do you remember when you first heard the special edition of Star Wars, and then you're wondering why this last track is 20 some odd minutes long, because it's the Binary Sunset alternative, right? And you're like, what? And if you're not reading the book, because it tells you in the book that after, I don't know why they picked the how much time anyway, but then you hear 5 versions of Star Wars and you're like, what is this?
Yeah.
I'm gonna see if I can find it. Yeah, I think Mike mentions it. Now I got all my headphones all out of whack here. But I don't know why they picked that particular amount of time. Where is it? Yeah, the main title archive. 2 minutes and 45 seconds of silence. Why that amount of time?
Yeah, why didn't they just have it as extra tracks, or why? Unless you read the booklet, does it actually say in the listings on the back?
Yeah, so it's like listings? A CD1 track 13 at 5 minutes. Oh, maybe that's why. Because right at 5 minutes, then it hits, right? So you have Binary Sunset, the alternate version, and then they go right up till the 5 minute mark, and that's where you hit take 16 through to 20. complete with slate numbers and incidental noise of the main titles. Every single one that was recorded. And then, yeah, it says, and that's what I like about this album. And I wish they did it with the Empire and Jedi one, where they tell you which cues are cut together. And the main title is selected takes 18, 19, and 20. And they did 16, 17, 18, 5 takes of it. And they combined 3 of them into what you hear in the movie.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a wonderful Easter egg, because they did have they had one alternate on the Arista box set, but I didn't know there were so many other ones, and they're all performed differently. They're all different orchestrations. I'm just like, what? How much time did John Williams have to write 5 different versions of this thing, all with different openings? You know, sometimes it's a temporal right to the. I was like, what is how? Why?
Yeah, I mean, when he's conducting it, how long does it take him when he's conducting it? Right, we need to make some changes here.
Yeah.
How long does it take him to actually do that? You know, does he just say to people, right, play this way, and they'll kind of quickly scribble it on the thing, or do they stop? You know?
Yeah. There's times where they'll do, like, you can do a rewrite right there, and then they dictate it to the rest of the orchestra, and then they're writing all that stuff down. But as for this, did he have, it's obvious it takes 16 to 20. So they did it all in a row. So did he have 5 completely different versions of the main title? And completely different, meaning just in orchestration or in, but sometimes there's other things that are performed different. It's just so, where do you find the time to do that? You're like, I'm going to do 5 different versions of these ones. We'll see which one sticks. Well, now I know what actually is going to happen. We're going to pick, this part from this part from this for this, and it's going to be the Star Wars main title. Fascinating, absolutely fascinating. Yeah.
On that, what was the 4-disc box set that came out in '93?
Yeah, that's from Arista Records.
Arista,
or Arista? Yeah.
Yeah. Isn't there an alternate Empire end credit suite?
There's an alternate Empire end credits. It's longer, but it's butted up against the alternate version of the funeral, the Darth Vader fire music.
Yeah, because it's got an alternate take on the Imperial March, isn't it?
Yes, but it's a little bit longer too. It's I'm not sure what it has to deal with. Maybe it's the added scene that they put in, because I know that they added a couple of different effect shots. I think it was the Millennium Falcon. Just it's a dumb reason why they did it, but anyway, they added some extra effect shots into Empire from its original version. But yeah, it's butted up against a track from Return of the Jedi, which is so weird. Oh, is it? Is it? I think so. I can't remember now. Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, it's the film version of Return of the Jedi with the Ewok celebration, which then segues into a slightly faster version of a slightly faster performance than the one that appears on the original soundtrack.
That's right. What a weird combo.
Yeah.
It just seems like something Fort Daxton would do, because I know that he helped out with that album. That's just something weird that he would do. And then what we didn't even realize is on what was it? Was it the special edition of Return of the Jedi? That for Victory Celebration, they didn't have a clean opening for the Return of the Jedi main titles. So to go from Victory Celebration to the end titles, they had to use portions of the Empire Strikes Back recording to then get into the original version of Jedi. Because I think the only way that then you would be able to find Jedi in a recording is mixed in with the ending of the original Yub Nub. So there isn't a version of the opening, of the end credits to Jedi anywhere. They might have found it by now, but yeah, I didn't realize that. Listening to it, I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. That's the Empire recording, which then segues into the Jedi end titles. So
Talking of Yub Nub and the end credits for Return of the Jedi, you know the Danish Symphony Orchestra. Have you seen some of their recordings and some of their videos? They did one recently with the end credits for Return of the Jedi. Have you ever
I haven't
seen the
seen
video
it.
for the?
Is it good?
Right. It's fun. There are people dressed up as Ewoks singing the Yub Nub song.
Oh, they actually do sing it.
Yeah, and I thought, how are they going to do this? And they don't hold back. They just go for it, full bore. But it's quite fun.
Oh, I'm gonna have to check it out.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, because when Gerhard did it, he did a symphonic version of it, so there's no voices, which was odd. But I want to see that now. Yeah, the Danish stuff is really good. I like that a lot. They did an interesting recording of Blade Runner, which actually was released, but they had a whole bunch of narration over top of it, which I found quite ironic, because the one thing that every soundtrack person complains about with Blade Runner and the soundtrack is the narration over top of it. So all of a sudden you get this symphonic version of it, and they're doing the exact quotes that are over top of the album release of Blade Runner. And you're like, no, why would you do that? Why? It's too bad, because it's a full orchestral version of Blade Runner in sweet form. It's wonderful. Yeah. And they have the sound effects and everything like that in it too. And I was like, what are they doing? Live narration.
I must admit that orchestra does the single best concert performance of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly I think I've ever heard.
Oh wow! Really?
Usually when orchestras do it, it just how do you copy something like that? It's a pretty unique piece of music, but they do a superb version of it. Wow. If you look, lots of people react to it on YouTube, but it is available. Is it the Danish Symphony Orchestra? Is it the Danish Symphony Orchestra?
I think it is.
But,
yeah.
Or
there was that film symphony, the film symphony as well. That the traveling film orchestra.
The Spanish one.
Yes.
Yeah, I think they do a version of it, but the Danish one is brilliant. It's from a concert. In fact, I've got the concert somewhere.
Danish Symphony. Oh, there it is. Oh, yeah, the first result is The Good, Bad, and the Ugly.
Yeah, it's from a concert called the Morricone Duel.
Okay. Because did the Danish Symphony, or was it the film symphony that did it was like Morricone versus something. Yeah, I think though it was also on like Netflix or like Amazon Prime. I'm not sure whether that was the album I was thinking of. They did a Morricone concert.
Well, I know that the Danish National Symphony Orchestra.
Morricone. The Duel. That's it. Yeah, it's the Morricone Duel. Yep, that was it. Yeah.
That's where the in my opinion anyway, the brilliant version of The Good, Bad, and the Ugly comes from. But they do all sorts. They've got Inglourious Bastards, Fistful of Dollars, The Hateful Eight, Once Upon a Time in the West, The Untouchables, Good, Bad, and the Ugly, Once Upon a Time in America, Sicilian Clan. They also do some other bits and bobs like the Bernard Herrmann's Taxi Driver, The Godfather. But yeah, but check out the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly track.
I definitely will. Yeah, it's right here. I'm going to put it in my watch later. There it is. Yeah, I saw that concert online. I never did watch it, or it was on Netflix, or maybe it was Crave or HBO or something like that. But I never did watch it. So, but I will check it out. Yeah, they're really good. They are really, really good. And that film symphony orchestra does some stuff that you would normally not hear in concert. They're really good, quite flamboyant, and they put on a really good show.
Yeah.
They
did a really good Patriot Suite.
Yes, they did.
John Williams, which I loved.
Yeah. And they did a version of Willow, which I mean you never hear Willow.
No.
They did a great version of Duel. Did they do Duel of Fates? I think
they did.
I think that was a really energetic performance. I mean, they're not perfect all the time, but anytime I see
No.
their stuff, I mean, they got so many releases on Spotify. I mean, it's a lot of fun to get through that stuff.
Yeah. But even when they're not firing on all cylinders, they're still fairly good.
Yeah.
But when they are firing on all cylinders, I think they're great.
Well, I mean, the fact that you got a symphony orchestra that's dedicated just to film scores, I think that's just great. They get bonus points right off the bat. And I wish they would travel around the world. I'd see them immediately. I mean, like I said, they put on a really, really good show, and they pick some really interesting tracks. It's just not the regular stuff that you hear. And I think that's absolutely wonderful. Yeah.
I mean, they do play the popular stuff, but interspersed with all that, you just get really, nice little rarities. So
right. Yeah. See if there are any. What kind of stuff do they have here at the Film Symphony?
Do they have CD releases?
I don't know if it's CD releases, but I don't know.
I know they've got stuff on iTunes. I don't know whether they've actually released physical stuff though.
Yeah, like they did a 10-minute version of Amelie. Oh, the Interstellar Suite. Holy smokes! See that one.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's superb.
Wow. Like at the end they do Stay, which is, I mean, to me, one of the best things Zimmer has ever done. And it's enormous. I mean, I'm just getting goosebumps thinking about it. But they do really, really good. Like they recorded Young Sherlock Holmes. They do an Aladdin suite, which is fantastic. Like how many times does Angela's Ashes get performed?
Not often.
What else did they do here? Yeah, you're right. The Patriot is good. A whole bunch of John Williams stuff, whole bunch of it. A lot of it's all the kind of like the stuff that you would normally hear. They do a good Far and Away suite. It's like 9 minutes long. They did some of the heroes. I'm not sure how well that turned out. Yeah, but it's like they've got so much. Just check out their channel. They're called the Film Symphony. They're just really, really, really good. They did an 8-minute suite of Casablanca. I'm gonna have to watch their Man of Steel suite because I'm not a big fan of that score. So I'd like to hear how that translates into, the orchestra.
Yeah. Go back to some of the heroes briefly. Did you see the Boston Pops version of that when we went into lockdown a couple of years ago?
Yeah.
And they did it all in seclusion. I thought that was superbly well done.
I agree. It was sort of it was exactly what you needed at that moment. I mean, if you're a John Williams fan and you watch that, they were spot on. Because I've seen other performances where they have people all over the world trying to make that match, and it sounded amazing.
Yeah,
it sounded so good. Yeah, I love that. I really did. I wish they did more.
I do too. The I think it was the Rotterdam Symphony Orchestra did "Ode to Joy," and they did a phenomenal job. Same concept. Yeah.
Speaking of "Ode to Joy," people need to record more Michael Kamen stuff. And I know there's a couple of Kamen compilations. Like he did one on his own, which is way too short. But it does feature a great rendition of the theme from Highlander. But then I know there was a 2 CD set recorded of his music, and it was quite odd, but they were really lengthy suites. But one was like an action track suite, and it was like Lethal Weapon and James Bond, and I'm not sure if there was any Die Hard in it, but it was really, really odd. But they were super long suites. I can try to find it, but I would love to hear more of his music performed, like even if it's just his concertos. Like those sax and guitar concertos are unreal. What's this thing called?
Real fast, the Danish Symphony, they do have CDs out. They're all imports. Yeah. I mean, they're imports for us. I don't know if they'd be imports for Ian.
When you say imports, Daniel, you're talking about what you call imports or actual official imports?
They're official imports.
All right. Okay.
Okay, so this one is it's a Spanish orchestra, and they did a 10-track album dedicated to Cayman. So they do Highlander, Don Juan DeMarco. They do a 13-minute action suite, which is License to Kill, Die Hard, and Lethal Weapon all together.
Wow.
8 minutes of Mr. Holland's Opus. Then the comedy suite, which is 101 Dalmatians and Jack. The Adventures of Baron Munchausen. They do 13. That's 12 minutes. They do 13 minutes of Robin Hood. Then they do Edge of Darkness and Band of Brothers. That came out in 2018. It's called Tribute to Michael Kamen.
Edge of Darkness must have been my first when I first heard Michael Kamen.
For Edge of Darkness?
Yeah, that was a BBC TV series in the late 80s?
Yeah, it was about like 87 or something like that.
Or mid 80s, yeah.
Maybe earlier than that.
And was it Michael Kamen and Eric Clapton?
Yeah.
Again.
The first time I ever heard that was on his Michael Kamen's Opus compilation. Which is this one. So you guys have this one right there?
Oh, right, yeah.
So he recorded darn it. He recorded he said new orchestrations specifically written for this album. But it's very short. It's like 12 tracks. But this is the first time I ever heard Circle of Friends. So that song, You're the One. It's an odd song. Lovely tune. Rowena from Mr. Holland's Opus. Man, that slays me every time I hear it. Does the overture and Marion at the Waterfall from Robin Hood. Really wonderful. Does Crusoe. I haven't heard Crusoe anywhere else except for on this. And then The Next Man. Do you know what The Next Man is?
The Next Man?
Yeah. It's called The Next Man. Winter Guest, which is lovely. Then it does the oddest track for Die Hard. I mean, for everything that is available in Die Hard, why would he do Takagi Dies? It's just an ominous piece that doesn't really mean anything. And I was like, when I heard he was going to do Die Hard for this, I'm like, oh, great. I mean, maybe he's doing the helicopter cue, which would have been wonderful. But yeah. But then he does Nuclear Train from Edge of Darkness, which is the first time I ever heard of Edge of Darkness, and it was great on this one. And then he ends it with Brazil. It's an odd album, but there can only be one track from Highlander. That's my go-to when I want to listen to that cue. And Stephen McLaughlin records this stuff, and man, I think he's one of the best recording engineers out there. If you ever get a chance to listen to the Iron Giant, that's just, he records, oh man, or 101 Dalmatians. There's beautiful recordings for Michael Kamen.
Okay, The Next Man. It's a 1976 film.
Really?
It's an American political action thriller starring Sean Connery, Adolfo Celli, and Charles Cioffi.
Is that like one of his first things he ever did?
It must have been.
Wow.
1976.
Wow.
Sean Connery plays an Arab person, much like the Wind and the Lion. Lance Erskine's in it.
Yeah, I never heard of it.
Yeah, Sean Connery's character name is Khalil Abdul Muhsin.
Oh, that's about right. Yeah.
That sounds Scottish, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Totally. Yeah, what does he say about it in the notes? Does he say anything about it? Magic City. This was my first feature film, and the Magic City was New York as seen by Sean Connery on a long helicopter ride bathed in magical golden light. So that's what this cue was for. Written for orchestra and harp. So some of this was recorded with the Seattle Symphony, and some of this was recorded with the London Metropolitan Orchestra, which I think is interesting. I think he did that on Mr. Holland's Opus. I think he recorded some of it in Seattle and some of it in London.
Right.
Which is a great score. and should have got an Academy Award nomination, in my opinion. Yeah. Anything else? Because if not, I might have to wind this down.
Well, what I would say is we haven't spoken much about Batman tonight.
I got a real quick question. Do either of y'all know Brotherhood of the Wolf?
Brotherhood of the Wolf?
I've heard of it.
Why do I know that name?
Is that James Horner?
No. That's Wolf Totem was James Horner.
Oh, that's
this
Wolf
is
Totem. Yeah.
Joseph Lo Duca?
Oh, Duca. That's what I thought. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know much about that.
I was looking at the Fantastic Beasts soundtracks because I don't have any of them, and apparently there's a new movie coming out.
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering if that's something I should get. And then Brotherhood of the Wolf popped up in the search results.
Yeah, I haven't. I'm not. Look, I think the first two scores are fabulous. For me, they're not memorable because I can't remember anything from them, but they're great. I can recall them being good, and I did put them on like my year-end list when they came out. When I hear them, I'm like, oh yeah, right. I remember that theme, but I don't recall all the other incidental pieces. But from what I've heard from other listeners, that the third one is essentially just kind of like a retread of the first two scores with a couple of really good original tracks sprinkled throughout. So don't take it from me, but that's again what I've been hearing. But I enjoyed the first two Fantastic Beasts scores quite a bit.
Yeah.
But I couldn't hum a theme for you though.
I loved the kind of closing credit music for the first film. Had a really kind of as you say, I can't remember it now.
Yeah, there's like this real like kind of angelic tone to it, right? Isn't there like these like a pulsating kind of choir theme to it?
Oh no, this is more like an upbeat adventure type theme.
That's it. Yeah.
That one. Yeah.
But I'm like, you hum it. I'm like, yep, that's Fantastic Beasts. I couldn't hum it back now. I couldn't. Yeah. But I think they're they're like action adventure scores. But I don't think they're kind of Williams Potter quality, but yeah. I don't know.
Okay.
But I mean, if you want a really good recent Newton Howard action adventure score, try Jungle Cruise.
Did they release Jungle Cruise? Or it's just digital for Jungle Cruise?
I don't know. But listen to that first track. That's pretty much everything that you want in that score. It's in there. And then there's some really great kind of this mystical, magical cues that kind of harken back to the Crystal Chamber music from Atlantis. Really heavy on those emotions. But it's got a fun like main theme and fun action music. It sounds a little weird. It does sound like a pandemic recording, or I feel like not all these players are in the room at the same time, and it just feels and sounds odd. But it's fun music. And that opening suite, I mean, I love those James Newton Howard opening suites that he does occasionally. Like the Maleficent opening suite is just fantastic. And so the Jungle Cruise ones he does it's like 8 minutes long. It's wonderful. Wonderful.
I saw in the past week, talking of newish scores, I saw Ghostbusters Afterlife for the first time. And I loved the score for that.
So did I.
I thought it was great.
Yeah.
And it was great to see. I loved Elmer Bernstein's kind of theme that he did for the Ghostbusters. You know, that one. I loved seeing that brought back.
Mm-hmm. Are you a fan of Ghostbusters?
Yeah.
Like the film,
so,
and all that.
Yeah.
Usually, I'm very critical about these films that are just like nostalgia bombs, and that's all they were going for. You know what I mean? And then it's like, oh, can't you do anything original? But for some reason, This one just hit me in all the feels. Like every moment of this movie, I was sucked in, and I didn't care whether they were like a million callbacks. Although, I mean, I probably could have used an original story because, man, this is just basically Ghostbusters 1, but out in Oklahoma. But there were some great little sprinkles of originality that you didn't get in the other movies. And the one for me was the whole Ecto-1 chase through the town, and the kids are ghost busting, and you never really saw a chase scene in the other Ghostbusters movies. And I thought that was just wonderful. And it had that 80s nostalgic fun feel about them. And it was just so wonderful to watch. But then, of course, all the callbacks that happens at the end, it just felt like, I think after all of these years and the missed opportunity to make a proper Ghostbusters 3, I think it was just a very tasteful way to go about it. And even though, I mean, Bill Murray looks like he doesn't want to be anywhere near this, it just, man, did it just ever hit me? It hit me hard. More so than any of the other, like, kind of like, soft reboot films that are trying it all, doing all these things over again. And man, they did it well. They just did it really well.
They got the tone right as well. They didn't make it a wacky comedy. They made it a proper supernatural adventure film, which had a lot of humor in it.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't playing it as an out-and-out comedy. They were going for the thrills and the scares, which is it's a difficult balance to get, and I think they did it perfectly.
Yeah. Like I said, I think an original story, like not bringing back Gozer and all that, and I think they could have done something a little bit different. But I think that this was aimed at only a certain type of person, and that is whoever grew up with Ghostbusters and enjoyed Ghostbusters. That's all they were aiming this at. And maybe, like, my daughter loved it, absolutely. And I'm like, perfect. You nailed that demographic too. And she wanted to go back and watch the other two, which we did, and thought it was great. But I really think that this is just like, we're going to do this for the Ghostbuster fans. That's it. We don't care about anybody else. It's just Ghostbusters fans. Here you go. Have at it. This is your sequel that you deserve. And I think you're right. The tone, they nailed it.
Yeah.
And the score is fantastic too.
Score's fantastic too.
I mean, Rob Simonson did everything right. Everything. Like even bringing in Elmer's son to help orchestrate and make sure that, his dad's music was properly performed and orchestrated but yeah, it was so perfect.
I think I've said this in our Facebook group, but I'm not a fan of, and I've no idea how to pronounce the instrument. The is it Ondes Martineau? How do you pronounce it? I think it's
Ode Martineau, I think.
Ode Martineau.
French, so you don't pronounce a lot of the words or letters.
Okay.
Odnes, whatever. We'll find out.
That thing.
That thing.
I'm not a huge fan of that, and Elmer kind of used it a lot in his later career. But the fact they brought that back, and they brought back Cynthia Miller to play it again,
yes,
I thought was fantastic.
I agree.
I still haven't seen the film, but I need to.
Yeah, I think you'd enjoy it.
Owned Martineau. Yep. There you go. Owned Martineau.
Yeah, the wine.
Like I said, the when you have NOT, it's no and not. And DES is like de and not des. So French is bizarre that way.
It's hard enough to listen to, let alone pronounce.
You're talking about that instrument and Bernstein using it all the time. Yeah, I think it's lovely in heavy metal. I think it's really good in that one. It's odd is it in Saturn 3?
It must have been the early 80s where he started using it
all the time.
Yeah.
But it fits perfectly in Ghostbusters.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. If there's no more questions, then I might have to duck out. Unless you really want to talk about Batman.
Save him for next time.
Oh, we'll save Batman for next time? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I haven't seen it anyway, so.
It's much like the way Jimmy Fallon treated Matt Damon. I guess that's how we're treating Batman.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, if Jimmy Fallon used to always say, "Sorry, Matt Damon, we didn't have time for you today, but we'll get you next time," and he used to say at the end of every show. Anyway, yeah, but I think we should totally discuss Batman next time.
Okay.
Yeah, sounds good.
But you're busy next week, right? You had a film thing. Film shoot.
I think Ian was the one that. Well, I might have something next week. Yeah.
Okay. And I'll be in Pittsburgh the following week for John Williams.
I think in about 3 weeks we're gonna get back and talk about Batman.
All right, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds good.
All right.
This is great.
Well, everyone, adopt, don't shop. Thank you for stopping by. Keep listening to great film music. I'm sure Mr. Woods has some shows coming up on his radio show. Well, what you got coming up?
We're doing the Patreon all requests. So that's the third one. And then there's a fourth one that's happening right now. So if you're part of the Patreon or you want to get onto it, you can make requests for that show. We got interviews up the wazoo coming up. Jason's done about 5. And let's see who we got. Hold on. Juliette Marchand, Craig Saffin. That's a 2-parter. We got Logan Austin and Dominic Lewis. And then we got another interview. David Cassina talks with, I don't know, but he's come back and he's done an interview. I can't see the name right now. Scored to Death will continue to do their series on Goblin, and it's fascinating. If you know nothing about the band Goblin and their film music work, listen to those shows. He's got 2 parts so far, and he's gone in depth on their music. Really great stuff. And then I'm gonna do some stuff, but I don't know what it is right now. So there's just so much going on. I know I'm interviewing one of my patrons. So that's gonna be a lot of fun. I like talking to my fans. So that'll be on an upcoming program as well. So yep.
Cool. Ian, you got anything coming up?
Yeah, I was going to do a video on my Entrada collection, but I put that on the back burner because I've started thinking about music in films where music has elevated a particular moment in a film. You know, there's been a great moment in the film, but then I think we talked about this about a couple of moments last week, but where the music has just made that moment spectacular, whether it be emotional or, you know, just an action beat or whatever. So I'm going to pick a number of films and a number of moments where the music has just done it for me. So, but I'm going to try and put a bit more production value into the video.
Oh, that reminds me, Jason Drury just did one, and so he sent me his files. He's like, "You got to make this look good." so he's doing the soundtrack tag himself. So that'll come out soon. Those have been great, by the way. And anybody watching now that wants to do one, please, they're so much fun. The Popcorn and Vinyl guy just did his, and I thought it was really, really good. I love hearing all the stories, so I would love it if more people would just, you know, do videos and show their soundtrack collections. It's a lot of fun to watch. Yeah, I'm doing my Mondo LP one here. Cool. Are you doing that tonight?
Maybe. I still got to go do some cleaning tonight. So if I get home and I'm not too tired, I may just jump on and do it tonight.
Awesome. Looking forward to it.
Otherwise, it's probably like next week before I get to it. But I got Bullet Wednesday night with Boomer. So
excellent.
And we'll be back in 3 weeks for the Batman Show, episode 3.
Batman 3.
Batman 3. This is where we do canted angles and lots of colors.
They made it so. All right, take care, everybody.